Dearest Aunt Florence, the flickering candlelight casts long dancing shadows across my desk as I write this letter. It's late or perhaps early, depending on how you view the passage of time when sleep eludes you. The hospital is quiet, the usual symphony of beeps and whispers replaced by an unsettling stillness. It reminds me of the eerie calm before a storm, a stillness that hums with anticipation of the chaos to come. I think of you often during these quiet hours, your wisdom and experience, a comforting presence in my thoughts. You always warn me about the darkness that can lurk behind seemingly ordinary facades, that sometimes the line between healer and, well, let's just say the other kind, can be thinner than a scalpel's edge. I never truly understood the weight of your words until now. Tonight, I'm going to tell you a story, Aunt Florence, a story that chills me to the bone. Genene Jones, a nurse like us. But beneath the surface, a darkness festered, a darkness that would leave a trail of heartbreak and unanswered questions. They called her the baby killer, a cruel irony that still sends chills down my spine. How could someone entrusted with the care of the innocent become the harbinger of their demise? I remember the day her story first reached my ears. I was a young nurse then, fresh out of school, my head filled with idealistic notions of healing and hope. A group of us were huddled in the break room sharing whispers of past hospital horrors, our voices hushed, our eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. Someone brought up the case of Genene Jones, her name spoken with a reverence usually reserved for malevolent spirits. They spoke of tiny, fragile lives extinguished, of grieving families left grasping for answers, and of a system that failed to protect the most vulnerable. That night, I went home and scrubbed my hands until they were raw, as if trying to wash away the phantom taint of her crimes. But the unease lingered, a seed of doubt planted in the fertile ground of my newfound profession. Genene Jones' story began like so many others, cloaked in the normalcy of everyday life. Born in 1950 in Texas, she grew up amidst the vast plains and quiet towns that whispered tales of both hardship and hope. There was nothing particularly remarkable about her childhood. No telltale signs of the darkness that would later consume her. She was, by all accounts, an average student, blending into the background of bustling classrooms and crowded hallways. Some classmates even recall her as being quiet and shy, a far cry from the monstrous figure she would later become. It's a chilling reminder that evil often wears the mask of ordinariness, lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. After graduating high school, Genene decided to pursue a career in nursing, a path that seemed at odds with the sinister path she would ultimately choose. She enrolled in a local vocational nursing program, immersing herself in the world of anatomy, pharmacology, and patient care. It was during this time that the seeds of her dark obsession with life and death were perhaps sown, her fascination with the fragility of human existence growing with each passing day. As Genene progressed through her nursing program, a subtle shift occurred. Her demeanor, once described as quiet and unassuming, took on an air of detachment, a chilling lack of empathy that set her apart from her peers. Fellow students and even some instructors noticed a certain coldness in her eyes, a disturbing fascination with the darker aspects of medicine. Whispers began to circulate about her unusual interest in experimental drugs and her preoccupation with the intricacies of life-saving procedures, particularly those involving children. It was as if she were studying the delicate mechanisms of the human body, not with the intention to heal, but with a more sinister purpose in mind. Despite the growing unease surrounding her, Genene graduated from nursing school and secured a position at Bexar County Hospital in San Antonio, Texas. It was here, within the sterile walls of the pediatric intensive care unit, that her reign of terror would begin. At first, Genene's colleagues dismissed her odd behavior as the eccentricities of a dedicated, if somewhat intense, nurse. She was, after all, efficient and knowledgeable, her skills seemingly unmatched in the fast-paced world of the PICU. But as the weeks turned into months, a chilling pattern began to emerge. An unusually high number of patients under Genene's care suffered unexpected medical crises. Seizures, respiratory arrests, and cardiac events plagued the ward, often striking when she was alone with her young charges. The hospital staff, accustomed to the ebb and flow of life and death, couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was afoot. Whispers of bad luck and a string of unfortunate coincidences filled the corridors, providing little comfort to the grieving families who had entrusted their precious children to the hospital's care. The shadow of suspicion loomed large, but no one dared to voice their concerns, fearing they would be labeled as paranoid, or worse, complicit in the unspeakable acts that seemed to be unfolding before their very eyes. The pediatric intensive care unit, once a haven of hope and healing, transformed into a nightmare nursery under Genene's watch. Infants and toddlers, already clinging to life by a thread, would suddenly deteriorate, their tiny bodies racked with inexplicable seizures and respiratory distress. The very air seemed thick with fear and suspicion, the sterile scent of disinfectant now mingled with the bitter tang of dread. Genene, however, remained an unsettling picture of composure amidst the chaos. With each medical crisis, she would spring into action, her movements swift and precise, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the panic that gripped the room. It was almost as if she relished these moments, drawing a perverse satisfaction from the suffering she seemed to orchestrate. The weapon of choice in Genene's reign of terror was often the unassuming syringe, a tool meant to heal, twisted into an instrument of harm. She possessed an uncanny knowledge of the human body, understanding precisely which drugs and in what dosages could trigger catastrophic reactions in her vulnerable patients. It was a macabre display of medical expertise, a chilling reminder that knowledge in the wrong hands could be as lethal as any scalpel. The hospital became Genene's twisted playground, the patients her unwitting pawns in a macabre game of chess. She moved from one victim to the next, her actions growing bolder, her methods more brazen. The whispers of bad luck that had once circulated the corridors were replaced by hushed accusations, the terrifying truth slowly dawning on the staff. One particularly harrowing case involved a young boy named Chelsea McClellan, admitted to the hospital with a routine ear infection. Under Genene's care, Chelsea's condition inexplicably worsened. Seizures racked his small frame, his breathing became labored, and his skin took on a deathly pallor. Despite the frantic efforts of the medical team, Chelsea succumbed to his mysterious ailments. Chelsea's death sent shockwaves through the hospital. The whispers escalated to hushed conversations, the fear palpable in every stolen glance, every hushed conversation. Still, Genene remained above suspicion, her mask of normalcy firmly in place. She even attended Chelsea's funeral, a chilling display of audacity that sent shivers down the spines of those who knew the truth. As the body count rose, so too did the whispers of suspicion surrounding Genene. Nurses who had once dismissed their unease as mere paranoia now exchanged worried glances across crowded hallways, their eyes betraying their growing fear. The once sacred trust between colleagues had eroded, replaced by a gnawing suspicion that a monster walked among them. Some brave souls, their consciences burdened by the unspeakable truth, attempted to alert authorities. They reported their concerns to superiors, only to be met with skepticism and disbelief. The hospital administration, blinded by Genene's seemingly impeccable record and the fear of scandal, turned a blind eye to the mounting evidence. The whispers of Genene's crimes, like the wind, carried the chilling truth beyond the hospital walls. Parents, their hearts heavy with grief and suspicion, began to question the circumstances surrounding their children's deaths. The media, sensing a story of unimaginable horror, descended upon the quiet town of Kerrville, their cameras and microphones poised to expose the darkness that had festered within the walls of Bexar County Hospital. The stage was set for a confrontation that would shake the medical community to its core and leave an enduring scar on the families forever haunted by Genene's crimes. The pressure mounted with each whispered accusation, each suspicious death, each grieving parent demanding answers. The hospital administration, once so quick to dismiss the concerns of its staff, could no longer ignore the storm brewing around them. The walls were closing in, and Genene Jones, the so-called the baby killer, found herself standing precariously in the eye of the hurricane. The investigation, once a trickle of hushed whispers and furtive glances, became a torrent of official inquiries, medical record scrutinies, and witness testimonies. Detectives, their faces hardened by years of chasing shadows, descended upon the hospital, their presence casting a pall over the once sterile halls. They interviewed nurses, doctors, and staff, piecing together the fragments of a horrifying puzzle that pointed to a sinister truth. Genene, however, remained defiant, her mask of innocence firmly in place. She denied any wrongdoing, maintaining her innocence with an unnerving calmness that belied the mounting evidence against her. Her colleagues, once torn between loyalty and suspicion, now watched from a distance, a mixture of fear and morbid fascination etched on their faces. The weight of evidence, however, proved too heavy to ignore. In 1984, after months of relentless investigation, Genene Jones was arrested and charged with the murder of Chelsea McClellan and the attempted murder of another infant. The news sent shockwaves through the community, the horrifying truth a bitter pill to swallow. The trial was a media spectacle, a macabre circus that captivated the nation. Prosecutors presented a mountain of evidence, including medical records, witness testimonies, and the chilling results of toxicology reports. They painted a picture of a cold, calculating killer who used her knowledge of medicine to inflict pain and suffering on the most vulnerable of victims. Genene's defense team fought tirelessly, attempting to cast doubt on the prosecution's case, suggesting negligence and incompetence on the part of the hospital. They argued that Genene was a scapegoat, a convenient target for the blame and anger of a community desperate for answers. But the evidence, like a damning indictment, spoke for itself. The jury's verdict, delivered after weeks of agonizing deliberation, was swift and decisive. Guilty. Genene Jones was sentenced to 99 years in prison for the murder of Chelsea McClellan, who died from a lethal injection of succinylcholine, and the attempted murder of Rolando Santos, who survived a similar attack. Jones was given an additional 60 years concurrently. The judge, his voice heavy with the weight of the case, declared that Genene would never again have the opportunity to harm another innocent life. The verdict, while offering a semblance of justice, did little to heal the wounds inflicted by Genene's crimes. Families, forever shattered by the loss of their children, grappled with the knowledge that their trust had been so profoundly betrayed. The medical community, its reputation tarnished by the shadow of Genene's actions, struggled to rebuild the trust that had been so carelessly shattered. Early release and rearrest. Due to a Texas law aimed at reducing prison overcrowding, Jones was scheduled for mandatory early release in 2018. However, to prevent her release, she was re-indicted in 2017 on new charges related to the deaths of 5 other children. In 2020, she pleaded guilty to the murder of 11-month-old Joshua Sawyer as part of a plea deal, which ensured she would remain in prison for the rest of her life. Until I write again, Aunt Flo, your nurse, niece Penny. If you find this series interesting, please like, comment, and subscribe for more.